Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We are heading into our next session now, which is all about the wellness industry, $4.7 trillion industry. And we have our moderator, Kathryn, who is the founder of Spa Connectors. And Kathryn, why don't we hand it over to you, and you can introduce your panel.
Thank you so much. I was hoping a few more people would be interested in learning how to tap into the massive industry we are working in, but yeah, fingers crossed some more arrive. Look, since the pandemic, we've seen so many new wellness entities arrive, and that's due to the fact that people are more looking at their own health and well-being as a priority, whereas perhaps in the past it wasn't. One of the fastest growing sectors of the wellness industry is wellness tourism. What we really want to talk about today is how the wellness tourism industry can tap into that sector. What we really are seeing is the demand from the hotel industry to be able to provide wellness experiences to a broad range of travellers, whether it's a domestic traveller or an international traveller. And stats have shown us that domestic travellers actually spend up to 100% more than your average traveller. And I think those sorts of expenditures and stats are really interesting because they're the sort of people that you want to have into your property. So we've got a great panel today. Let me start by introducing Ingo to you. Ingo is down the end here, Ingo Schweder. He is the founder of GOCO Hospitality. He's based in Bangkok and Los Angeles and is the operator, developer and owner of wellness-related hospitality assets to the excess of $300 million.
Lucky man.
Yes, you are. We also then have Emlyn Brown next to me. Emlyn brings over 22 years of international experience to the role. He is the head of spas and well-being for ACCOR, so we're very lucky to have him come all the way from France.
Lucky man.
And then in the middle, we have Ruben Toral. He is a healthcare executive with GOCO out of Bangkok, and he is the he formerly was the chief marketing officer of Bumrungrad, and is really focused on the medical wellness industry. So he'll be able to bring that aspect to our chat today. I think what we really want to be able to share with you is the different aspects of the industry and how potential properties, whether you're an operator, an owner, or an investor, can really tap into the various segments. Whether you're looking at doing retreats, whether it's a spa that needs investment, or whether you're an investor that's looking at taking on wellness resorts. So I just wanted to start with Emlyn. He has over 600 spas plus around the world. He has health facilities and so forth. I wanted him to start by telling us how ACCOR is looking at the industry and what they're doing to keep up with that wellness demand with their clientele.
Thank you, Kathryn. Yeah, I think just to move on from that, we're seeing actually a mass acceleration of the adoptions of wellness and well-being post-COVID. I think that we've always talked in the industry about this being some sort of trend or niche thing. It's certainly not. It's a 2,000-year-old business and industry that goes back to Ayurvedic and TCM sort of time. So you're really tapping into an element of the sort of human experience that's been around for a long, long time and will be around for a long, long time going forward. As Kathryn mentioned before, statistics in relation to average spend being over 60% greater than a leisure traveller, longer lengths of stays, far higher propensity for referral, far higher propensity for guest satisfaction. These are fascinating things for us within ACCOR to tap into. In terms of the reaction to that, I think probably two things I would say. I think the first thing is that we're spilling out now of the classical spa environment into a much more holistic approach to wellness and well-being within the property, within the resort, right? Both urban and also resort locations. So that for me would be movement and exercise, moving into a far more dynamic fitness environment. I think the biggest thing you're going to see within hospitality in the next 5 years is going to be the adoption of more vegan, plant-based dietary elements within food and beverage, which are responding to the demands from a new, younger consumer coming through. Certainly digital aspects being brought into our business. So And then finally, I think the design aspect, right? We're in the sleep business, and we need to be owning the sleep experience, and the understanding of sleep and how important it is to our consumers is now front and center. So all those things combined means that again, the classical spa experience in the hotel, the amenity-driven experience in the hotel, is being moved away into a much more holistic, experiential element for our guests across all the guest touch points, right? And I think that at a luxury level, certainly that's getting more sophisticated. The requirement is definitely there. The demand is definitely there. And the expectation for excellence is certainly there. So we're seeing it as a very, very important part of our luxury delivery and a very important part of what we need to be doing within ACCOR.
And so from an ACCOR perspective, you're putting those brand standards in place for each property to be able to implement based on brand, based on the guest demographic.
Yeah, I mean, we work on a sort of pillars of sort of 6 pillars of well-being, which lays across all of our strategic developments for each of our different brands. And I'm very fortunate the fact that, ACCOR and Sebastian Bazin, our CEO, really bought into the idea of wellness and well-being at an early stage. We've had a central team driving this for quite a long time. We also have historical properties like brands like Fairmont, which has a historical element of wellness and well-being dating back to the alpinism in the Rockies from 130 years ago. So we're able to tap into more historical elements of it. From a strategic point of view, each brand's got a very, very clear direction, differentiation. I would certainly say it's more skewed towards our luxury market, from Raffles to Fairmont to our Sofitel sort of brands. And certainly we're adopting this more holistic approach across all of our brands. And then each one is sort of fine-tuned. So within Fairmont, for example, the more direction we're taking now is more of a club-based health club experience. Within Raffles, it's more of a retreat-based sort of classical spa experience. We're developing a new brand approach for our Sofitel Maison called The Purist, which will be a much more elevated and all-encompassing wellness opportunity for us. So yeah, a lot of differentiation. But to go back to the original point, is wellness has got fundamentals, right? If you're touching nutrition, movement, spa experiences, sleep experience, they're universal experiences, right? And so you're always going to be based off those 4 things. And if any hotel company are probably doing those 4 things well, then they're doing wellness well.
So I guess wellness is really targeting more of a high-end guest in ACCOR, essentially.
We're quite passionate about what we call democratizing the wellness experience. We've had a lot of talk and conversation about sort of 1% or the ultra-luxury market, and that's definitely there, right? But I think that any property at any level, certainly within premium and down to our mid-scale properties, needs to be tackling this demand from consumers, because we found out that 4 out of 5 of every one of our guests, irrespective of brand, consumer, location, is taking a daily step every day to improve their health and well-being. Well, that can be through 10,000 steps, or couch to 5K, or having a vegan or plant-based meal, right? And so it's not just about the luxury market. The opportunities across all brands and all demographics. And certainly I think that if you want to attract a younger consumer, think about within ACCOR, for example, our brands, we're keen on making sure that our guests stay sticky. So they may start at a certain level of spend with a certain brand, and they may move through as they become more Henrys, sort of high-income earners, not rich yet. And so their wellness journey will become more sophisticated. So we want to catch them early and make sure we're serving their needs early across all of our different brands.
Ingo, you have an interesting property in the US, Glen Ivy. I don't want to say it's a volume business, though you do.
It is.
Have millions of people going through a bathing ritual every day. Is that democratizing wellness? Tell us about that.
So we own Glen Ivy Hot Spring. That's America's oldest hot spring resort. It's a 85-acre property between San Diego and Los Angeles. We bought it in 2015, and we had to reposition it because it was really run down by the former owners who didn't care as much about it. It's now generating a very healthy income and a very healthy profit. But the key is it welcomes 200,000 guests. If you want to give it a star rating, it's perhaps a 4.5 star. It's not a 5-star, and I would say more 4 than 4.5, somewhere there. We had an old hotel, so what I bought was an old hotel, but then I found out it was not ADA compliant. And if you buy something in America which is not ADA compliant, don't be so naive to believe that you can move this into a proper hotel, because the ADA compliance in America are very strict, the rules. So we have to build a new hotel right now. So it's actually a day spa generating 40 million in revenue and over 12 million in profit. So we are very happy with that acquisition, and we look forward to more of those.
I think it's interesting, Ingo, your business model you're a consultant. You've come from being an operator, like Emlyn. You've now
We were colleagues.
You were colleagues. You have your own company, and you consulting, investing, and operating for other owners. I think your expertise would be very interesting for our audience because you're coming from all of the angles of the business. Can you share what you're seeing and what you're doing? Because I think it's really important for the audience to understand the opportunities.
We started as a consulting company when I left the corporate world. This is 15 years ago now. And we started to consult on spas. From spas business, we bought the first wellness resort, the Hot Spring Resort in California. From there, we ventured, actually with a friend of mine, he was the former CEO of EMI Music, we ventured into fitness. And we have now a fitness company in China. Our partner is Jack Ma. We are capitalized over $100 million, the last C round, and we are expanding. So fitness business, China, Taiwan, Hong Kong. We have 15 outfits there right now. We bought a mirror company. We are now working with Schweder in Hong Kong land to put those mirrors into many of their residential wellness projects, or wellness-interested high-end luxury projects. The first one in Shanghai, the second one in Beijing. The other company is the consulting company, which is Horvath Health and Wellness. Horvath is a financial service company, is part of Crow, the accounting company. And there we consult on acquisitions. When Six Senses was bought by Intercontinental, we were the one who gave them the strategic advice. When Hyatt bought Miraval, we were the strategic advisor. We worked with a couple of sovereign funds, PIF, Norwegian sovereign fund, Singapore sovereign fund, so on strategic matters. So we have our hands in different pies, so on an operating front, on the strategic front. We have developed brands, Jumeirah, we did the Bulgari brand recently, we're doing Win right now. So we have our hands in different pies.
But what gave you the balls to put your money into all these operations? Because a lot of these operators out here are saying, like, let's outsource the spa. Let's get third parties. We don't want to put money in there. We don't understand it. Like, why did you take your hard-earned money and put it in there?
I, in the beginning, put our own money inside. I sold my 2 properties, but I also got from Adax Bank, which was the former Abu Dhabi, part of the Abu Dhabi Sovereign Fund. I raised $5 million. Emlyn at that time and myself worked together. We returned that money after, I think, 5 or 6 years. I simply believe that it is good to also put your money where your mouth is. And we work hard, we work smart, and that's not me, that's the team. And then lately we added some very senior players within the team who have all contributed and will continue to contribute. And
so the key is the team?
I think the key is the team.
And the strategy?
The strategy, and really is also the outlook. Yesterday, my friend David said to me, Ingo, what you said 10 years ago becomes reality. And that's really true. I believed in it. And many people, as David knows, didn't believe in that. They thought I'm a fool. And I said, listen, why would you put your money and why are you so enthusiastic and things like that? And now, I mean, I think I can say this. We got recently an investment from Temasek, that's a Singapore sovereign fund. It's the first time that sovereign fund invests into wellness, and they signed an exclusivity. So if Temasek develops wellness, they develop it with GOCO. So,
well, that's a big tick for wellness, isn't it?
That's a big tick, and that's the first time that a big fund does that, So I think this is just the beginning, and this is just by accident, it's us, but it's going to be others, and I think it's very good for the industry.
And Emlyn?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think the classical sort of spa and hotel environment is changing dramatically. I think that you're asking about why some of the hotel people are not feeling as confident before, because the product's much more sophisticated than it was before, right? So the idea of building some treatment rooms, a swimming pool, and a very standard fitness area, those days are over, right? I mean, they certainly have to be over if you want to attract this new consumer. And so you've got probably 3 or 4 areas of development and growth within ACCOR that we see. We're moving away from traditional spa business and moving into 4 key areas. One being the health club business, for sure, right? So how can we monetize our AA and AAA assets in urban locations into a health club-based model, right? Secondly, the boutique fitness, as Ingo mentioned. So looking at ways we can bring smaller footprint areas, but high intensity, high fun, dynamic, bringing in a lifestyle-driven crowd, right? Your sort of Soul Cycle and different things like that. The bathing business Ingo mentioned before is very attractive for us within this market. It's democratized, high price points, a low labor delivery model for wellness and well-being, and that's certainly an area we see of growth. And I think finally, what we would call the high net worth recovery business. You're going to hear a lot about recovery, the idea of what athletes were doing before in terms of compression therapy, IV therapy, HBOT, and so on, coming into the sort of spa and wellness realm. And so I think to land that plane it's complicated, right? And so I think that sometimes when you see complicated things within the hotel realm, you're like, well, let's back away from it, get somebody else to do it. I think that from our point of view at the luxury level, we want and we must own the guest experience. Right, and that's from A to Z. And this guest experience now is wellness and well-being related, right? And that drive and demand is not going to go away. So I think the message for hotel people is, get better, right? That's essentially, right? Would you agree?
Yeah, I think you can see when I started my career and spa director or fitness trainer or fitness manager, they left the office as soon as I could because I was interested in food and beverage and rooms business. But reality is it is a substantial part of the business. I think a spa director needs to be part of the ACCOR. I think what we did in Mandarin Oriental, we made the spa directors, 15% of their KPIs were driven by the results of the business in the spa business in their respective unit. That means they were in the EXCO and they were there, and I was sitting on the board. That means that really gave a strong emphasis within the organization. It's 15% of your bonus, and if you don't make it in spa, you have only 85% to get. Your bonus is substantially reduced. That means it pinches you. Therefore, I think that company did it at that time very well in the business. And I think the future will see many more wellness-interested general managers and executives and senior executives.
I hope so.
I think we will.
Emlyn, you touched on the medical aspect of the offerings. I would just want to ask Ruben, because this is his wheelhouse. Putting medical into wellness spaces in hotels, wellness resorts that are offering medical tourism and so forth, it's certainly not easy. And as Emlyn just said, it is a little bit daunting for a property to consider. Tell us, some of the things that we need to be looking out for if this is the path a property wants to go down.
So I think that anytime that someone's looking at wellness, there's a very fine line. Actually, it's not fine, it's a hard line between what is lifestyle and non-medical and what is medical. So Emlyn had mentioned the 4 areas that they were taking a look at, and medical was not one of those. Why? Because there's cost complications and risks involved in it that increasingly drive up cost, which makes the risk and liability, makes the brand nervous about issues of risk reputation. It makes the owner nervous about ROI. It makes the operator nervous about whether or not they're going to hit KPIs. And at the end of the day, for the consumer, they get a suboptimal product. Right?
So potentially a light medical option would be your IVs and
sure, but even a light medical model will require some sense of licensure, doctor, nursing, and again, it just adds to that complication. So something as simple as, putting an IV for, fluids is fine until a medical mishap happens, and then it starts to get ugly very fast, and that's one of the issues I think that most hospitality brands face when they start to take a look at incorporating medical. Now, medical wellness resorts are a completely different story because what they've done is decided that they are going to incorporate and weave medical into the product, and you've got the length of stay, which people are coming for 7, 14, 21 days, and they're expecting something more than just lifestyle. They want medical as part of that. Where you're going to get that medical talent oftentimes is a very key issue, because in places like Thailand, where we're all quite familiar, Thailand is a perfect crucible to figure out every model of how this thing works, from hospitals co-partnering with hotels offering space within clinics, partnerships between companies like BDMS and Bumrungrad to develop wellness clinics. So again, if you're looking at a model, Thailand tends to be that model for both wellness, medical wellness, and of course healthcare. And the last thing that I might mention is that you had started the conversation talking about wellness tourism. So Thailand and the hospital that I used to work with, Bumrungrad, is the, if you will, the icon for the medical tourism movement. And so that was something that happened about 20 years ago. No one would have traveled to go to Thailand for healthcare. And now everyone travels to Thailand for healthcare. And to think that that transition took place within a 20-year span of time is really quite amazing. And the knock-on effect that that has had on Thailand as a health destination has been nothing short of impressive.
Yeah. I think if we look at Dubai as an example, we have some amazing hospitals here that are all trying to get into the wellness tourism space, medical tourism space. Some of them are doing an okay job. There's also a lot of standalone wellness concepts that are creating a medical offering. And then we have a plethora of hotels that have spas that are not doing well.
No.
Very low capture rates, low revenues, GMs not knowing what to do with these properties. And the investment is going into these standalone spaces. And that is where everyone is going. Dubai is such an interesting market. For you guys, one of you can answer this. Why would a hotel not want to get on board in leasing out their spaces, revenue share, something like this to some of these different opportunities? Because it's footfall into the hotels. It's bringing in then additional revenue.
I'll answer the operator side, and then the third-party guy can answer from his side. I think there's always an opportunity in the case for expertise to be brought in to drive that, right? And particularly on larger locations or larger operations, we will look at that, right? But fundamentally, there's two reasons. One, we have a responsibility to drive business to our own HMA,
Heads into
right?
beds.
Yeah.
Okay. And secondly, I think more importantly, to own the guest experience, right? That's the most important thing. And I think that, you know, in most cases, and coming from not from GOCO's side, but there's a lot of bad operators out there, right?
Yeah.
A lot of people come into your business and do 2 years and then fail, and then you're left being handed it back, failed business, right? So the risk side of it's there as well. Now, on the flip side, do hotels and hotel locations and individual properties need to sales, market, position, support, drive, recruit, and really double down on their well-being assets? Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that's really what the conversation that we're having is how can we actually manifest that in a better way? Because if a third party can do it in that location, why can't you? Right?
So what's something that you could tell the audience that they need to look for in a third-party operator?
I think you're looking for, I think if your product's going to be a bit more on the sort of medical lifestyle or larger operation, I'm looking for naturally reputation, track record. I'm looking for what they're going to deliver for me in terms of the value add, right? So certainly in terms of recruitment, talent, people, training and delivery, right? So it's the same sort of conversation I'm having when I'm looking at a product company or product sort of partnership, but obviously more sophisticated, more detailed. Can they drive business to my business? That's the fundamental, right? Or are they actually going to end up relying on you to drive business to them? That's really not a great third-party relationship. I mean, I know that Ingo's operating a number of great third parties, and he's doing it in a larger way. So maybe you can speak from your side.
And is it revenue share? Is it rental? Management deals?
I think it's a mixture of both, right?
Depending on the property.
Depending on the property, depending on things. We're entering into negotiations with a couple of sort of really leading locations, and most of those are based on a revenue plus an accelerated GOP percentage. But I think finally, I'd say I want to see some skin in the game, right?
Yeah.
So then they really need to sort of man up and say, look, we're going to do OS&E, we're going to contribute, we're going to put some money down. Yeah. That keeps everybody whole in terms of the relationships,
Yeah. Ingo?
I think from a branding standpoint, if your medical spa goes sour, if anything happens and it has the same name than the brand of your respective hotel, then there's an issue because that brand will inflict whatever happens in the hotel as well. So it needs to be somehow separated, branded in two different streams of some sort. I think that's one. I think the second one is Ruben knows this, and recently I read this from Dean Ornish, some very senior person in the nutrition field, Harvard-educated, Harvard professor. Sick people don't want to see healthy people don't want to see sick people. So being in a luxury hotel and having, somebody with whatever, an ailment of any sort, they don't want to necessarily see that and be in the same room, in the same environment. Now, one of our clients is Bad Ragaz in Switzerland. It's a $200 million mixed-use casino, restaurants, 5-star medical, Swiss medical clinic, and things like that. They have, for example, the medical component separated. And if those people want to eat, meaning the ones in a wheelchair or who don't do so well, they go to separate sections in order to make sure that the gentlemen and the ladies who have money to splurge and are young and vital and just come from the latest treatments and look and glory, that they are not connected to each other. So that's what happens in Bad Ragaz. In the properties which we do, we actually do light medical. That means IV, cryo, related things. But we don't go into hardcore medical subjects because, quite frankly, we don't know about them. That needs to be done by specialists, and we're not the specialists in that. Yeah,
and I think that's the area that is probably the white space in the market where the brands, the operators are looking for a plug-and-play operator on the medical space that can come in with staffing, protocols, equipment, again, to Emlyn's point, have skin in the game and be part of but separate from, so that the liability issues from hospitality and medical/wellness are well defined, but on the same property, and can be sold as an integrated product, not two separate services.
I think, Kathryn, there is the preventive model, the authentic wellness complementary medicine model that gets somebody from an okay state to a bliss state, right, to a better feeling, detoxification and related. And then there's the medical model when I'm ill and I need to have something done. And then I go from being, not feeling well and not feeling good and having certain ailments, and I come to an okay state. Hospitality, in particular in the luxury field, but in principle, should get you from I feel good, but really make me feel great. Give me the right food, the right exercise, the right programming, and I really feel wonderful. So I think they are not clashing, but they are not totally complementary. But also, Ruben, we hoteliers, we wellness hoteliers, we don't understand that space. We are not medical doctors. Our background is hospitality at large.
Yeah.
The one thing that I will say is, in that wellness space, when it gets into lifestyle, when the pillars are always the same and they are fundamental, it's that issue of commoditization, right? Or oversaturation that happens when you get a situation where everything is wellness and nothing is wellness. So again, the smarter operators and brands will figure out what is that signature wellness product that we are going to give.
Yeah, I think, you're simplifying it there, and I think that's what each individual property or brand has as a challenge, is identifying what does their audience want in the way of wellness. And it might be secondary wellness, where it's a nice balance of some yoga, healthy food, macro menu, and the ability to still enjoy themselves. Correct. It may be then primary wellness, where it's a Shiva-som style experience, what have you. But it is identifying what is the offering. And I think essentially properties need to employ people that know what they're doing to be able to then advise. Right? Can I just end with asking you if you could, each of you, what are some of the main pain points that you see moving forward for us as an industry to be able to really see success? Emlyn, you may, please.
I think we're in a talent scarcity situation that's probably the worst out of all the hospitality segments we have. We've talked about this a lot. The scarcity of talent versus the developments we've got right now is a consideration. But we can solve that through more tech and more innovation in our business models, right? So it's both an opportunity but also a challenge. But I think the people piece, because well-being is so authentic and so human-orientated, that for me is going to be the biggest challenge, is the talent pool.
Yeah, well, especially with some of your concepts, bathing, contrast therapies, these sorts of things where you're using more equipment, less people, essentially. Of course, that helps.
And that will go much more mainstream.
Yeah, absolutely. And all hotels can adopt that right now.
And that's
right,
not
and make money, and everyone wants it. It's all over
Correct.
Instagram. Yeah, exactly. These are easy, quick fixes that properties can do.
My
Ruben?
mention would be that it's an information gap. So some of the earlier speakers today were talking about how hospitality has a lot of information on a guest, but rarely knows how to use that information on a guest, right? Same thing with healthcare. Healthcare pulls a lot of information on a patient, right? But what do they do with that?
Absolutely
And so
agree with
it's one of those things where as people come in is not so much predicting what they're going to need, but having that intelligence that makes whatever that offering is a lot smarter to the clientele that they have. And I think that because this information is siloed, that they just throw it out as an amenity and go, here, take it as you will, without putting it together in a more cohesive form where a program is around it, so that you're not eating a side dish, it's part of the plate of food that you have.
I agree with everything you guys have said. I think the only thing I can add, don't ever build an ordinary spa. Never ever do that. Don't ever have 2 treatment rooms or 4 treatment rooms in the sauna. That is totally passé. Conceptualize this piece from A to Z. Be very clear about the market segment you want to hit. Employ, design, conceptualize everything to a very specific space, and you will be okay.
Totally agree, totally agree. Do we have time for a question? Does anyone have anything they would like to ask our panel? Oh, perhaps. Oh, amazing. Age, did you say?
Aging, longevity hubs.
Oh, listen, we could talk about wellness like all day. We've only had 30 minutes, sorry.
How aging has to be integrated into the greater wellness concept and into the future of hospitality.
It is, David. It's very simple. If you eat right, if you exercise right, if you have the right communication. No, when we talk about wellness, that's all an aspect. And there is in certain wellness resorts that become center stage, but also in fitness clubs, simple movement forms help us all to remain fitter for longer. So longevity is actually something which touches each aspect of what we do.
I think what David, when you're talking about, for example, I mean, if you're asking about a future trend, well, wellness residential is now, I think, one of the biggest topics that's happening now. I know Ingo's been working in that space. You're asking me on a more predictive crystal ball element to respond to that. Yes, we're living longer, we're living better. The longevity conversation is happening now, for sure. And we want to live better. So I think for me, looking at some of the things that are happening with the, sort of the Blue Zone developments in Miami and everything else, the interesting piece on that is probably more the residential with a centralized wellness facility supporting that aging and aging well sort of consumer and customer. We're seeing a lot of movement into that market. And I think from a residential point of view development, that's an interesting space to play in for sure.
My take on this would be yes, the wellness has obviously a huge portion to play in this. But then you've got the medical side of anti-aging or pro-aging, which is anything from stem cell therapy to any of the IV cocktails that you're using to the genomics and the genetics and the nanotechnologies. And again, is that the space where hospitality is going to start playing in?
Perhaps
Perhaps.
very limited.
Right, but it does happen in Switzerland. I mean, a lot of people go to Switzerland to get cutting-edge therapies that they cannot find in other places. So therein lies a possibility. But again, aging and in aging societies and the demographics are all weighing into wellness as a whole.
I think we need to wrap it up now, sadly.
Okay.
We could keep talking for hours. We have just touched the tip of the iceberg with wellness today. As you can see, there are so many aspects. We're all within the industry constantly battling what is wellness and where is it going and what are we doing. And if any of you would like to touch base with us after or in the future, we are very happy to keep talking to you about what's going on in wellness, because as you can see, it's a very big and interesting industry with a lot of potential and revenue to be made. Thank you guys for coming all the way from around the world to be here. I really appreciate it. And thank you for coming to listen.
Thank you.